So, welcome to the second dimension, everyone. My name is Jonathan, and I'm back with another interview today with Joe Bernados from the acclaimed Netflix series Jurassic World, Camp Cretaceous. So, Joe, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Hello, doing great. How are you doing?
Doing well, doing well. So could you tell us like just a little bit about yourself and maybe an introduction to your career in the animation world, and then how you got to Camp Cretaceous specifically?
Yeah, I'm a storyboard artist for feature and TV animated series. I started off in terms of my career. I started off as a story intern for at Pixar Animation Studios
Oh, wow.
back in 2015, I want to say. And then from there, moved on to LA and then worked for DreamWorks, which is where I've been for the past like how many 5 years now, actually. Yeah.
Wow.
And and the first show that I worked on was the How to Train Your Dragon spinoff. Oh God, well, they have so many spinoffs.
Was it Race to the Edge? Race
to the Edge,
one?
exactly. Yeah. The reason I get like mixed up is because right after Race to the Edge, I moved on to Rescue Riders.
Oh.
So it's like one after the other.
Yeah, DreamWorks
yeah.
spinoff series on Netflix are a huge thing, I know.
Oh yeah, it's they're really great and they're a lot of fun to work on. And I moved on to Rescue Riders as a board artist, and then right after that I went to Camp Cretaceous.
Awesome.
So yeah.
Can you tell us anything about like the brief time you had at Pixar? Like what stories you were I guess assisting on?
For Pixar, the way they have their internships for the story department, it's kind of like a 3-month storyboarding boot camp almost. So we don't really assist with specific productions. It's more like a long class format where we're given different assignments every week.
Yeah.
Just learning the way that Pixar storyboards.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was pretty fun. We got paired up with mentors, and every week we had to basically pitch like our boards to the entire Pixar story department, which was always very nerve-wracking.
Oh wow!
But yeah,
that'll definitely give you experience pitching for sure.
Oh yeah, I'm still not great at it. I think I'm still like a very nervous pitcher, but I use that nervous energy to like pitch anyway. So
that's really cool though. With the working in the DreamWorks kind of animation department, how do you get moved from one show to another? Is that something you request, or do you just kind of go with the flow, or do they reach out to you and say, we want your talents on this specific thing, or what's kind of how does that work?
Yeah, in terms of placement within DreamWorks, we have a department that like handles all the talent, and they get all the talent in touch with like the different productions that are going, and we end up basically just interviewing over and over again to like the different shows that need help, and then we're onboarded to the new ones. So
awesome. So yeah, let's go ahead and talk about the Eye of the Storm episode. So this is a big episode in Camp Cretaceous. It's kind of the turning point for season 3 because you've built up for almost like half a season, a little bit into season 2, and even some teases in season 1. This E750, this big Scorpios Rex. So in order for this threat to be a threat, it has to be revealed in this really personal way to the kids. So what challenges did boarding such a intense and personal and such a payoff of a scene include?
Yeah, specifically with this episode, I think the show in general, you kind of have to balance so many different elements between just the different perspectives of all the different kids and towing the line between what's acceptable for television and in terms of like how scary we can push this and how like and exactly how much danger we can put the kids in.
Right.
It's definitely something where we really just had to kind of like keep it in mind, but also like push it like further and further into like the scary territory.
Right.
And for me, my way in is always just kind of like keeping in mind, like, all right, whose point of view are we following throughout this whole thing? And like, and like kind of keeping like what the emotions that are underlying with each like moment with the different sequences are
Right, like you have all the different character tension coming into this between like Darius and Kenji, and you have the stuff between Yaz and Sammy and their whole thing about like, our friendship isn't real, and it's like all of these things are happening, and then it comes to this scene and it's like we all got to stick together because this thing is worse than anything else that we're dealing with.
Exactly, yeah. As originally scripted, I think it was going to be sort of like a showdown between them and E750, like the Scorpios Rex. And it was very interesting because I originally I took inspiration from like the Battle of Helm's Deep, where like it's all dark and it's raining and it's all about like the shadows, and you have these kids kind of with their weapons kind of like preparing to face down this like terrible monstrous thing.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of it was like a lot of fun just kind of really going for it and like just really having them kind of like
Yeah. Did you feel like there was like a kind of trust you had with the audience at this point, like 3 seasons in, that allowed you to do a more intense scene like this that you wouldn't have been able to do in the first season?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because we've seen the kids kind of like go through thick and thin through different like levels of like danger. And I think just even from the script phase, it was already like meant to be very just moody and dark and really like kind of terrifying, especially since like E750's been teased all throughout the season, and just really kind of bringing home and like paying off all their teases of how dangerous and how like scary it is. I felt like that was something that I definitely had to deliver in terms of like making it believable and like worth the wait.
Yeah. So there was a choice made to use a lot of rain and lightning in the context of the attack. Was that something that came from the script, like as far as like kind of building towards the storm throughout the episode, or like the extensive use of it? Was that something that you included in the boards? And how do you go about like doing that in the boards, like making sure that the lighting people get the notes of lightning strike here to make this shot more epic or whatnot?
Oh yeah, definitely. That was definitely in the boards, but I was able to really just kind of punctuate like certain moments with like lightning and the rain, and kind of like really using the atmosphere of it in that way, where I would say like it's definitely something like, just as an aspiring filmmaker, that I just like really love to do, is really be able to use all these different tools of like lightning, rain, and kind of and how that would affect the scene and how people move and things.
Yeah.
Even like the little droplets falling down from the Scorpius, which is a lot of fun.
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
that's definitely something that I incorporated into the boards as well.
Yeah, the effects like on the like just kind of the saliva of the Scorpius Rex's mouth, and when it roars, and you really get that feeling of it, and you can really tell that the animation team they're all into bringing your boards to life with that scene.
Oh yeah, our animation team is amazing. That always they always like really just impress me anytime I see like the finished dailies for them. It's like, oh my god, like it's so detailed.
Anything that's 3D animation on a TV budget is always so crazy to me. Like stuff like, everything that DreamWorks does, but also like Monsters at Work at Disney that they're putting out now, and just what you're able to do in 3D nowadays is so crazy.
Right? Yeah, it becomes harder and harder to delineate like what's technically TV and like and feature nowadays, because like the technology is just so much better now.
Yeah, and even like the
And the
pacing.
budgets are like way better too.
Yeah, because like with Camp Cretaceous, like you could really make each season, if you edited it slightly differently, into like a movie, like Camp Cretaceous 1, Camp Cretaceous 2, Camp Cretaceous 3. But it's just the format of TV and the 8-episode style. I think it's really cool that that line is kind of getting blurred.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's definitely, from a storyteller's point of view, it's just like more mediums to be able to play with, you know. And I
Right.
think we definitely kind of live in a golden age of like animation, where like so many new and exciting things keep on getting greenlit and coming to life because
Yeah.
of it.
So the episode Around the Scene is largely like just a big escape plan for the kids. How do you go about making sure that your boards are consistent with kind of the feel of the other board artists for the episode, and also just making sure that it's not too much of a tonal shift, especially given how the rest of the episode is a lot calmer and kind of more character drama than this big action scene. Like, do you communicate with the other board artists via like just checking on each other's boards and saying, what are you doing, and making sure they connect? Or like, how does that whole process work?
Yeah, we when we made Camp Cretaceous, everything was still kind of in person because it was before the pandemic. But
Yeah.
like, yeah, the other board artists on my team were Ryan Hansen and Phil Cruz, and we all kind of like lived sort of in the same office area.
Yeah.
And we all definitely kind of would like exchange ideas and kind of like keep track of like something as simple as like screen direction,
Yeah.
or even just give each other notes on like acting and like, and just generally keeping track of everything. And then of course our director Mike Mullen, who is always there to kind of like keep us like corralled in a way, and
Yeah.
making sure like his vision is like being brought to life and things.
Yeah. So when you're able to do that in person, you can communicate a lot easier
Mhm.
about those sorts of things. As
Mhm.
you've moved into the pandemic, has that been more of a challenge on stuff that you've worked on?
It's been a little bit of a challenge, but it's still very much like it's still very much a thing where I could still just like, I am somebody, hey, can you look at this real quick? Or, but I'm just someone who feeds a lot on just the energy of like being right next to someone, and kind of
Yeah.
like being able to like bother them immediately. So,
Like, hey, can you give me some feedback on this? I want to
mhm,
kind of get your opinion. Yeah, that's really cool. Is DreamWorks
mhm.
back in person at studios, or you guys still work from home?
I We still work from home right now, so
Okay,
I think they might be reviewing some things, but we haven't really heard anything back yet.
gotcha. Um, so I
Mhm.
think one of the things you had mentioned was that there were a couple revisions to the scene. Can you speak to anything that was kind of changed from your original boards, and like what those things were, but then also kind of what the purpose or idea was behind those changes?
Yeah, the process in general with Camp Cretaceous is that like we get about like 3 weeks for the rough storyboards that we present to the producers, and then another 3 weeks to finalize everything and incorporate all the notes. And then right after that, there's a process where it gets locked for animation. And at that point, like the board artists have already moved on. Our showrunners and an animation supervisor, Aaron Hammersley and Cesar Kang, they kind of go in and like any necessary changes in terms of like just budget, just story, or even just budget concerns that have to be inputted into the boards have to be, they incorporate it basically into it before it gets locked.
Gotcha. So
And
like
that's
things
just, yeah.
like we can't have this many locations because we don't have the budget for this
Mhm.
episode, or that sort of thing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially with Jurassic, where like we always have to take into account like how many group shots we have, or how many dinosaurs we're allowed to show in a shot.
Oh
So,
wow, I didn't realize there were like specific restrictions for that sort of thing.
oh yeah, like yeah, it's very interesting because like we try to make it look as seamless as possible.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
which I think like
yeah,
the productions, yeah.
I have a hard time noticing it
Mm-hmm.
because on screen it's just it all flows together. But I'm guessing, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you have that back and forth with both the writers and the board artists, and just everybody kind of wanting to make sure that we're not putting too much into the whole thing. So
Mm-hmm.
so the changes specifically made to your scene were dealing with like, you know, having maybe too many of the kids in one shot at a time or that sort of thing, since it's a scene
Also,
that involves all the
yeah,
kids?
also story just with in terms of like storyboarding, like it's best to always just keep reboarding, keep plussing, and keep like making it better. And I think that's part of the process as well. And I think Aaron and C really just plussed it to be even more dynamic and even more scary than it was before. So
Yeah. Was this your first time boarding a scene kind of for the horror genre? And like what was it what well I guess first was it the first time boarding like a horror type scene?
um and see now I'm trying to remember. Wait, is it the first time? No, no, because I always kind of anytime I'm given something that's like very suspenseful, I always try to just push it towards like the horror genre. So
Yeah.
I'm always so it's kind of hard for me to say that this is specifically the first time, especially with Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous,
Right.
where so much of it is all about like suspense and like kind of keeping the audience on their toes.
Yeah.
So, but I think this is I would say the most atmospheric and the most like purposefully scary that I've boarded. So
Yeah. I would notice one of the things that was consistent throughout that I think, and I love the movies, but I think one of the things a lot of the movies sometimes get wrong is they take away the scale of the dinosaurs by not using the camera properly to make them feel bigger. I
mhm.
noticed a lot of the shots of the Scorpios are like really low. Like unless you need to frame the group from above, you try to keep the camera kind of low. And like, is that something that you took from kind of how you feel about the Jurassic movies, or kind of in that I guess area of reference?
Yeah, that's very you hit the nail on the head in terms of like just me personally. I love just really showing off the scale of like because I've worked on a lot of creature kind of like animations before, and that one of my big things that I really love to do is kind of pay attention to the scale of like the different creatures and the dinosaurs,
Yeah.
especially. Yeah, so just keeping the camera low and like making sure that there's like size references to everything. Because like even, I mean, let's say you see a dinosaur in real life, the main thing that you're gonna take away like at the beginning is how big it is. And I
Right.
really like love just keeping that in mind and making sure it hits the audience like this is a big like thing in front of you.
Yeah, as basically one of the first people to do boards for the Scorpius, did you have any input with the art design of the creature, or was that something that was totally handled before you got the design?
That was something that was already handled like when I got it. We have a really great art department that like that gets to like basically make our job so much easier by
Yeah.
like making them already scary to begin with. So
Yeah.
and yeah, and we pull a lot of inspiration from them too.
Yeah, I know one of the things people have talked about is kind of specifically in that pose where you first really see the Scorpius Rex roar kind of in the lightning, and it has that really kind of creepy pose. How it looks
Mhm.
like it invokes the rumored Jurassic Park 4 with the human dinosaur hybrids. Was that something that you had in mind, or was that just kind of you thought, oh, it just looks really creepy in this kind of pose?
Actually, yeah, funny you mentioned that shot because that's like one of the shots that was like one for one with my boards, which I'm like really proud of. But yeah, that one they gave me the note earlier on that to make even the way that it moves and stands very off-putting. And one of the ways that that I did it was kind of just inserting a little bit of like human characteristics to it, especially with those arms. And
Yeah.
and yeah, and yeah, that shot especially it was it's weird because it's something as simple as just kind of like moving its arm this way, like
Right.
made it just so much creepier.
It really did. It kind of gives it just this very unnatural and just kind of horrifying vibe.
Hmm.
Especially when you look at some of the boards of it climbing trees too, and it kind of climbs like a monkey or um
Oh yeah, exactly. It's yeah, one of the shots that didn't make it in, like I had it being revealed from behind the fence. It was just kind of like kind of like moving this way and kind of like really just kind of something where like it almost doesn't have full control of its like limbs, and it just made it seem very like off-putting and like gross and kind of like just scary. Which I never thought I'd get to do for like an animated show. So
yeah. So with an attack scene like this, when you get the script, are all the beats of the attack in there, like the attack in the treehouse, and then it moves to the floor, and then you have like Sammy gets hit with the quills and is kind of out for the count, or like Yaz gets knocked off the treehouse? Are those different specific beats in the script, or are those things that they're just kind of like the Scorpios Rex attacks, and we briefly see a moment where we discover that it's, vision is thermal, where it stops attacking them, and then it hears the call of the other Scorpius and it goes away? Do they give you like that, or is it like, do you actually get like the beat for beat, this is the action scene?
It's a lot more kind of generalized. Like some things were definitely there where like specific plot moments where yes, where Sammy gets hit, or yes, like calls out for her and things like that. But there are a lot of moments where that I kind of added in where the Scorpius jumping into the treehouse wasn't there originally. That was something that I kind of like just felt, hey, I need them to run out of the treehouse. What's a really terrifying thing that could happen? And I had it just jump right into it and kind of like start.
That's one of my favorite shots in the whole sequence, is the one where you look at Darius and he's scared, and the shot slowly starts to pan and pull focus, and you see it kind of climb around the tree as it kind of like gets perches and gets ready to pounce. I love that shot.
Mm-hmm. That was like a lot of fun. And I just really wanted to get the Scorpius like right in front of them, basically, and kind of like make the audience feel like, oh my god, is it gonna eat them? And then
it gets close, but then you have like, obviously the beat where the tree catches on fire and it gets distracted, and you kind of set up that idea that, okay, it's really its attacking is so just kind of random and based off of what's in front of it, essentially. Like the only reason you see in the boards why it even wants to attack them at all is because of the electric fence. If their fence, honestly, if they hadn't electrified it, it probably would have just brushed past.
It probably wouldn't
have. So in a way that bit them in the butt, but
it's interesting because like and it speaks to the collaborative nature of animation, I think, because that beat where the electrified fence is what catches its attention, like that wasn't in the script, and like that wasn't part of my original boards either, and that was part of the revisions like later on that happened.
That's awesome. That's
it's really
that's such a crucial beat, I feel like, for that scene too.
Exactly. It's great, I think. And and the way it was originally scripted, the tree catching on fire doesn't happen until like towards the end of the sequence too. So so a lot of things kind of like got jumbled up and like switched to just kind of like make everything like stronger towards the end,
I think one of the things that I talk about in the video is that the spotting the tree, or the tree catching on fire, is such a perfect break, because if it breaks up the action, so it's not just carnage and dinosaur chasing, and because like no matter how cool anything is, if you do it for too long, people are gonna tire of it, especially in a show where, like you said, the kids can't get eaten by the dinosaur. So you really need to rely on the strength of the action to hold the audience's attention. And one of the key things about action scenes is making sure they're well paced. I think that's true. That's one of the things that this scene just does really, really well.
And definitely shout out to like the entire like production team and the entire story team that really came together and kind of like made this the sequence that it is, and the episode that it is.
I think it's definitely one of those moments that people will just remember. Everything from, like you said, that one shot with the lightning and that eerie pose, it's like it's a very striking image. It sticks with you, and in a medium as as visual as film, those kinds of images are really important. I'd say it's as iconic as like, the Mosasaurus from above shot as it goes for the shark.
Yeah, I was very like it's also something where like as a storyboard artist, like I always try to just make everything like as composed as possible, as possible and as like impactful. So you never really know which one's really gonna like puncture through the zeitgeist. And as soon as season 3 came out, and I kept seeing like that image just reposted over and over again to different like news sites and like social media, it's like, oh, okay, I guess that worked out. That's great.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's amazing. And I think it shows that people really resonated with, the work that you did on that scene. I'm curious, like when you board for Camp Cretaceous and you kind of add to the story, like what's your take on dinosaurs? Do you view them more as kind of these terrorizing monsters, or do you kind of just respect the fact that they're animals? Because I mean, I think things like getting agitated by the electric fence kind of help add to the fact that these are just animals and they only attack when agitated or frustrated by something, even with something as wild as the Scorpios Rex. But I feel like sometimes the movies do treat them more as just like these scary monsters, and then sometimes they have this on respect. What's your take on them, and what do you like to try and incorporate on your boards?
I mean, me personally, I'm always just dinosaurs in general. Like I've always left me in awe ever since I was a child. And I think I always, anytime I have to board a dinosaur, I always like look at it from a child's point of view, in terms of look at this amazing creature that like is just beautiful, and like I've never thought I would like see anything like this in real life, and that's always kind of my end,
Yeah.
just seeing like sort of like the spectacle of it. And yeah, I think they're like any animals where like, yeah, they can be dangerous if provoked, or like majestic if you just want to appreciate them from afar,
Yeah. Outside of this scene, what's your do you have a different favorite scene that you boarded on Camp Cretaceous? And I know Colin Trevorrow mentioned season 4, but you can't talk about that. But like in the first 3 seasons.
In the first 3 seasons, actually, funny thing is, this is because I joined Camp Cretaceous at the very end of the second season.
Yeah.
So at this point, I've only had like maybe 3 episodes.
Oh, okay.
So far. But I really loved working on in the season premiere of season 3, where they're on the raft.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was able to kind of I joined Leah Art with the director with her team for like a week before I moved on to this one. And that was a really, I was able to, that raft scene of them just kind of like bickering amongst each other while this giant wave comes in. That was like a really fun sequence to film.
That's awesome. That was the one that was used, and I know all the trailers for season 3. So that's really cool that you got to be the first thing that people saw essentially in the season and the trailers.
Oh, and thinking about it now, actually the same episode, the stampede at the beginning, that was a lot of fun.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was just like, I just went crazy with like as many dinosaurs as I could, just trying to like terrorize Yaz in Brooklyn. And it was just, oh no, that was Sammy in Brooklyn. Yeah, Sammy in Brooklyn. It was like, yeah, that was fun.
Do you get to like label which dinosaurs you want in the different stampedes, or like is it something in the script where it's like in a stampede of this dinosaur, this dinosaur, this dinosaur?
Well, we have a stock menagerie, so to speak, of like dinosaurs that we were allowed to use, but it was all pretty much up to me, which is great. Yeah,
that's so cool. So you can be like, I can put my favorites right in there, and
exactly. It's funny, the original version of that sequence, like they were like, everybody was like, all right, that was too many dinosaurs that you put in there. You need to like start taking them somehow. It's like, all right, fine.
Because I mean, that's part of framing the boards, is the number of dinosaurs can change whether or not your shot composition works.
Exactly.
See, I guess that's part of revisions and everything, is you gotta kind of give and take and go back and forth. So I guess kind of talking just for a little bit more about the Scorpios Rex scene, what would you say is just your favorite part about that scene, or maybe something people don't know, or just like any trivia you can provide about it, like just anything that maybe we haven't covered yet?
One thing I would say, there's like the way that I originally worded it was that like everything was pitch black in front of him.
Oh.
And then Darius was originally like look at a specific part of the fence, and then lightning hit, and then everything just revealed the Scorpios Rex already there, just looking at them.
Yeah,
and that's definitely one that was one sequence that I definitely missed. And then another one is that my director liked, but like we kind of had to let go because of like technical things. Because you know how the topiary in front of them is the Jurassic World logo?
Yeah.
Yeah, like at the very end when the Scorpius is running away, I had it to where the logo is inverted, and you see the Scorpius Rex kind of just like run through it, almost like just kind of like a symbolic kind of thing of like, here's like an abomination of what like John Hammond wanted.
Oh, that would have been so cool.
But yeah, it didn't make it in, but yeah, that would have been so great. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. Yeah, in terms of my favorite moments in the sequence, just like so many. Just even because I love like just the reactions of the different kids, kind of like screaming as the Scorpios Rex are like right there chomping at them.
Yeah,
like that bit where Kenji throws the flashlights at it for no reason. That was like real fun.
Yeah, including those character moments into the action scene. It's like, this is how this character would react. That's it's such good attention to detail. And when you came on Camp Cretaceous, like how long was your I guess intensive training? Like, did you binge the show, or did you have to watch episodes over and over? Do like location studying to make sure you knew, like, what kind of things did you do to prepare coming in at the end of season 2?
Yeah, at that point, because it was still in production, like so there was a lot of episodes that weren't finished yet. But I did end up kind of binging the story reels for the first season, and kind of just like getting acquainted with the characters and how to draw them and things. And that happened as I was rolling off of Dragon's Rescue Riders.
Yeah.
So it's just very funny going from imaginary flying lizards to like to I guess kind of imaginary like
grounded lizards.
like giant grounded lizards, exactly. So it was like very interesting just the handoff between them, because on the one hand, one is very much directed towards like children. Switching gears to something that's a little bit more, I want to say, realistic and more grounded and more like scary in general. It was definitely a bit of a. It took me a minute to like make the switch, but yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting that all you had to binge was the story reels. Cause I forget sometimes, especially with a show like Camp Cretaceous, where the seasons are released in such close proximity that it's in like constant production. It's like even coming into board at the end of season 2, none of season 1 had been finalized at that point, which, that's...
Yeah, nothing was finalized at all. Yeah, I think, even the music wasn't recorded yet or anything.
Wow.
So it's very interesting.
That's so interesting, because I know with Jurassic World, it's like so far they've tried to release a new season like every 6 months. And that really speaks to how it was produced, which is basically just continuously. It wasn't like, all right, we're going to wait and see how season 1 does, and then might renew it for season 2. It was like they greenlit that. And I do think that's one of the cool things about shows that are attached to kind of movie franchises or whatnot, is they have a lot more studio backing because it's confidence in the IP. And
yeah, it's definitely something where just all the people involved with it are like so great too. Like Colin Trevorrow, like really kind of just he basically shepherded the show into what it is now, and it's very like his vision definitely comes through and kind of keeps everything like it gives us faith in like what we're working on.
That's awesome. Have you gotten to meet Colin?
I haven't, not personally, but
okay,
but I did meet Steven Spielberg.
That's really cool.
Yeah, that was fun. Yeah, he came to the studio once, and then he came to the studio once, and he came into the Cretaceous office spaces, and that was really cool.
That's awesome. It's nice to know that the executive producer credit isn't just like he put his name on, like he's actually at least, visiting and checking up and making sure that everything's good. And I know Colin obviously has just this really big vision for everything Jurassic World. And so I think that's so cool that Camp Cretaceous gets to be, such an essential part of it, especially watching it alongside the movies and just how much it adds, and how he's talked about how in the last movie, you're going to get more out of it if you've seen Camp Cretaceous, and everything they've set up in the story. So I love that interconnectivity.
Yeah, it's pretty great. It definitely expands the universe more and kind of like gives you new perspectives on everything.
Yeah, especially on characters like Dr. Wu, who the movies maybe don't have as much time to devote to, what they're doing. But yeah, I really love Camp Cretaceous and everything that it's done, and I'm excited to hopefully see more. Again, season 4 hasn't been officially renewed. Colin has mentioned that his favorite episode is in season 4, which seems kind of suspicious since it hasn't officially been renewed. But we'll see what happens.
I can't say anything. So.
No. I would not ask you to. I was just kind of talking for the audience. But yeah, I think season 3 tells such a good story of the kids leaving the island, and it's good character work, and that's really awesome that you got to jump on board and really be trusted with such a crucial scene in the show.
It's definitely I feel very honored to have been like given the scene, and thank you so much for loving it as much as you do.
Yeah, absolutely. You're welcome. It's awesome to get to talk to you about it. It's like talking to the people who make the things. I feel like is one of the best things that has come out of the internet. It's like it used to be, with TV shows, you look at the credits and it's like, okay, but now it's like you look at the credits and it's like, I can look that person up and there's their social media. And it's like it makes for a very interconnected world. And I think that's just really neat. And I like that about the era of technology, so to speak.
And thank you so much. And we definitely, like us or who create these things, are very appreciative of it, and like we work really hard and like are very passionate about these shows and these things.
Yeah. So I think just a little bit more about you. Like, what's your kind of you talked a little bit about your journey. Do you ever have aspirations of being a director or a showrunner, or are you comfortable storyboarding? Like, what's kind of your thought on where you are in the industry, and what's kind of your path?
Right now I'm just kind of just enjoying the ride in a way. Like I having been a board artist really kind of opens a lot of like just opportunities and a lot of like really great projects to land on my lap, and I've kind of just like been seeing what happens next, really.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I right now I'm on a feature that I'm not allowed to talk about.
Yeah.
But it's definitely something where I would love to one day maybe direct like an animated feature, maybe even be a showrunner for a series.
Oh wow.
But that's like more like in the distance. I'm still kind of like earning my wings in a way.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and being a storyboard artist, it does offer just so many different industries you could go. Like there's a whole visual effects previs industry for movies like that, and that's all basically just storyboarding. And you have feature animation, you have TV animation. It's like a whole world of possibilities.
Exactly. It's kind of limitless right now, sort of like what can happen next. So I'm just kind of like here for the ride of it.
Yeah, talk to people and just let the opportunities present themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Would you ever be interested in doing like a show where it was written as it was boarded, where the boarders are the writers? Would you ever be interested in doing one of those?
Like a board-driven show?
Yeah,
yeah, definitely. I'm definitely open to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's definitely something where if the right project and the right opportunity comes along, I'll like hop right on it.
That's awesome. Did you ever write any scripts while I forget? Did you say you went to college for? Did you get?
I did. I went to I got my bachelor's in like general media arts and animation,
Yeah.
and then I went back to school for my master's degree in storyboarding specifically. So
Yeah. So you would you say you college is worth it for kind of the experience and the knowledge that you gain?
definitely, I think yeah. When I came into like my undergrad, I didn't even know that animation was a career like option at all. I'm yeah, I came from the Philippines where that wasn't really a big thing, and then I moved to the U.S. and my mom sent me to this local art school and said, "Hey, check out what they have." And then they had an animation track, and I was like, "Wait a minute! Like, you mean I can study to make cartoons? Like that doesn't make any sense. But let me try this." And then
Yeah.
things just kind of happened.
Did you have kind of like that artistic spark as a kid where you're like drawing all the time and
Oh
kind
yeah.
of trying that sort of stuff that kind of made you want to go down that path?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I'm a kid who like grew up just watching cartoons all the time, and like I grew up on like the Disney animated classics and everything. And it was also I grew up in the '90s, so that was around the time of the Disney Renaissance that was
Yeah.
happening, and that just really informed me as a person. Really.
That's awesome. It's interesting, like, going for studying animation, like, have you actually like animated before? Or have you stuck to mostly just storyboards?
I animated like a long time ago, but yeah, since then I've kind of just stuck to storyboards, and I love just having that much of like a bigger say on like kind of exactly what happens and how things happen like in the story. Like that's really kind of where my heart lies. So
Yeah, you like to be, because you have people
yeah.
who prefer to be like kind of the guiding force of the story or providing the outline, and then you have people who just like to fulfill the outline. That's kind of the whole animation side of the industry, is in betweening and coloring, and it's like, all right, I don't have to think about
Hmm.
what's happening here. I just have to think about the execution of it. And I think there's obviously, you need both, and that's really cool that you found your spot in the execute, or not the execution, in the direction of the story with boarding.
Hmm. Yeah, that's definitely the great thing about animation is that like to the untrained eye, you don't realize that there's just so many different like aspects of it that like that you can really hone into and make that sort of your niche.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's really great, I think.
What advice would you give to anybody who's kind of young, kind of looking as to potentially becoming a part of the world of animation? What advice would you give them?
I would say, well, it depends on which aspect of animation, but like the main thing is like draw a lot. Like make sure to like draw every day, draw from life, and draw like kind of what you see and what you experience. But then also watch a lot of movies, watch a lot of TV series, and kind of learn like visual language.
Yeah.
And I think yeah, and that for me is very foundational in terms of just like loving movies and like loving storytelling in general, and kind of like just seeing as many different kinds as possible, even bad ones. You learn a lot from bad movies too. So
Yeah, learning cinematic language, stuff like, like we talked about in the scene, depth of field shifts and
mhm.
perspective and camera placement. It's all sorts of things that can be easier to practice and observe in live action than animation sometimes.
That's exactly, yeah, just like honing kind of your taste in like in media and things. It's like you're right, that appreciation is very key to like this industry. One exercise that I always tell people who want to be broad artists is just watch a movie and then pause every shot and just draw the shot, like even draw a small thumbnail of the shot and like successively, and that'll kind of like teach you storyboarding and cinematography like really quickly, I think.
And like, what are the key things that need to be noted within a storyboard shot? Like, what's the stuff that's been added and what's essential for the interpretation of that? kind of learning?
I think it's really like, yeah, it once you're learning straight from like film, you start getting like so many different things like lighting, composition, staging. Like you start noticing all these things,
Yeah.
and then really the way that you watch everything changes in a way, and you become that one person who won't like shut up with it when you're watching or something and start complaining about the shots and things. It's kind of,
it's like,
but I think that's just part of it.
Who is their cinematographer? Yeah. Do you ever did you do any study of editing, given how much editing comes into play as a storyboard artist with, when to cut and that sort of thing?
Yeah, it's definitely like I've taken a few editing classes specifically, but it's also just something that you kind of learn as you go along as well.
Yeah.
Right, and we have like every production that I've been on, we had some really great editors too that we were able to work with and kind of just get some pointers from, and kind of like just general like editing like tips and tricks from, which is really great.
That's awesome. When you board for Camp Cretaceous specifically, do they give you like kind of a scratch soundtrack to go with, or you just go directly from the script and kind of time out the whole scene yourself?
Yeah, we just like all we got is the script and maybe a few designs.
Okay.
And we just go from there. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like all the timing and things like that comes later.
It's more just let's get the specific shots.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, usually exactly, and usually they take editing cues from how we pitch our boards as well. So
yeah,
so it's a lot of it really falls kind of down to us at first.
Yeah,
in the beginning, like it's all kind of like a building block kind of thing.
Did you grow up a fan of the Jurassic Park films, or did you get to see any of them in theaters as a kid, or?
Oh yes, growing up, I was allowed to only watch movies once in theaters, and Jurassic Park was the one of only two movies that I managed to beg my parents to see more than once, like twice, and that was a huge deal for me.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's really awesome that you loved these movies since you were a kid, and now you get to work on part of the franchise.
I know. It is kind of crazy, because back when they were still in pre-production for the whole series in general, I would walk by the offices where they were kind of starting pre-production for it and see all the artwork for Camp Cretaceous. And in the back of my head, I was always like, oh, I want to work on that. And then I never would have thought that I would actually get the chance to. I was like, what?
That's amazing.
As soon as I got the call, I was like, all right, yes, definitely, yes. Jurassic, yeah. So put me on that.
That's amazing. Yeah, and having, being able to contribute just to these films that, you've watched and you've studied, like you said, since you were a kid. And I think that's a really awesome story. And that just makes me really happy.
It's great. Yeah, you just never, you never, that's something that you would never think would ever happen. Like you would get a hand in those stories, and like I feel very lucky and grateful that like to have had this experience.
Yeah. All right. So second to last question: what movies or anime or things are you watching now, or would you really recommend for people if they haven't checked it out? Just in general, what's your taste?
I would say Hilda. I know everybody talks about how great Hilda is, but I love it, and I will just keep on talking about how amazing that show is. And so that's one, Hilda.
Absolutely.
And something else. Did you see that Taco Bell commercial with the kaiju and the robots?
No, I haven't.
For the Fire Force.
No, I'll have
you
to,
should
I'll
look it up.
Look
it's
that.
Great. It's basically a parody of like, yeah, it's amazing, and I kind of wish it was a show, even though it's about French fries, but still.
That's awesome. Yeah, I know Hilda specifically though. that's my next planned One Perfect Animated Scene episode is from season 2 of Hilda.
Ooh.
So hopefully I'll be able.
Oh my god! Can you tell me which it is?
Yeah.
Is it too spoilery?
No. It's the scene at the end of the 50-year night, where the time the I think Tilde and I forget the name of her neighbor, but they sacrifice their lives to protect the timeline, and it's like you see the worm just go across the screen and just devour them, and it's just like such a crazy moment. And that was another one of those shots that just
gets you right there, right?
Yeah, it just stuck in my head. And that whole episode, just so many things, from the fact that they don't have dialogue when the two of them are speaking to each other. In the past, they just let the music play and they let your mind fill in what they're saying to each other, and the time travel action.
Exactly.
It's one of those episodes of TV that's it's just so far above what you would expect from any family entertainment media. And I think that's part of the golden age of animation that we're in for TV animations. You can tell those kinds of stories.
Exactly. Yeah. It just kind of hits you, and it transcends things and just kind of make you tear up, and just how beautiful it is.
Absolutely. I got Twig back here.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a little Twig plush, but Hilda's one of my favorites too. So that's awesome that you enjoy that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Mercury.
And also Luca.
Yeah. Oh, Luca, yeah. Mercury is so cool.
Yeah, Luca is. I love Luca. Yeah, it's just so. Yeah, their stuff is so good. And I've been watching Luca pretty much like every day since it came out. So that's another thing that I've been watching.
That's awesome. Yeah, I know a lot of people have felt really inspired by Luca, and just. Mm-hmm. I know a lot of the people who worked on it were concerned that moving to streaming, it wouldn't have as big of an impact. But I think that's almost helped it have an even bigger impact. Because like you said, people like, I know my younger sister, she loves watching it like every day. You like watching it every, like, it's one of those movies that just sticks with you and you want to rewatch it over and over and over. And streaming will let you do that.
Mm-hmm. No, exactly. I think it's also a thing where we live in a time where as long as you make something that's like that you believe in and that is like really beautiful and good, like people will see it and people will find it and people will spread the word.
Exactly. It's like, marketing is, the shows are the marketing for the streaming service, which makes, the marketing for the shows less. But you hear like shows like Stranger Things that are kind of made in obscurity, and then the word gets out about it and everybody's like, oh, I have to see that. And that's kind of the beauty of streaming, is the popularity of shows. It's a lot easier because they're accessible to everybody in one place. And so there's really a bigger cultural conversation around it, which is really cool.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah. So where can people find you if they want to follow your work and see what you're up to? And, maybe if there's any animation employers on here who want to drop you a line after knowing about the scene, where can people reach you?
Well, right now the only real social media that I keep up with is Instagram.
Okay.
I'm under @StitchCastle.
All right.
It's a silly name that I've had since high school. But
you like Lilo and Stitch?
I love Lilo and Stitch. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. So there you go. Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
And I post art and I do movie reviews randomly on there too, on my stories. So if you guys want to check it out.
All right. Thank you so much for joining me on the show today. And thank you so much for watching The Second Dimension. Be sure to stay tuned for more interviews in the future. And I will see you back in Dimension 1.